A lot of the drive lines we've seen, they come in off the trophy trucks, and you can see they've almost been sandblasted from tiny pebbles and sand. All it does is remove the paint. The carbon fiber can take that all day long, just like the steel tube can. Hi, Jim from JE Real Driveline. If you're considering a carbon fiber driveline, there's some really good things about it you should be thinking about. One, the performance, the lightness, the vibration resistance of it, the eliminating vibrations, but also some real safety factors. Carbon fiber drivelines on a trophy truck. We're experimenting with this. We've gone to a smaller diameter. The reason for that is, than say like on a Mustang for drag racing or something, we're trying to give a smaller target for rocks and debris to hit. And the smaller driveline at 2.5 inches, 48 inches long in carbon fiber, it doesn't exceed its limits till you reach 19,000 RPM. The current steel drivelines at about 36 to 38 inches, 3.5-inch steel, exceed their limits at 6,200 RPM. So the idea is, if we give you a smaller target and higher ground clearance, you can reclaim that space we saved you with a stinger that'll ride with the driveline and protect it from debris and rocks. Or you can run it without, and it's a smaller target. There's something to think about, and people wonder, why did you go smaller instead of staying with a larger one? Because the larger one would be even more rigid. That's true. But like I said, we're trying to give it a smaller target. You're not going to exceed 19,000 RPM. And the difference between a drag car, say that's 50, 60-inch driveline, and it's running 120 miles an hour, or a slalom car or something like that, is they don't have the amount of torque, the big tires, the pounding that a trophy truck takes. Okay, a trophy truck's going to have an underdrive. And what's the difference in the amount of time that trophy truck's running at high RPM across the lake bed for 3 miles, 5 miles, and a drag car gets up where it's at and it's all over, it's done. So you got to take into consideration gear ratios, tire size, underdrives, and things like that. Where in the other cars or a street car, you have an overdrive, which is going to relieve the engine, but the driveline will still run at the same speed that it was. It's only letting the engine RPM slow down. This is the reason for a smaller driveline. The bigger driveline is more rigid and would be more rigid. But if the 2.5-inch carbon fiber is more rigid than a 4-inch tube, you've exceeded what you need at 19,000 RPM. You can't exceed it. A lot of the drivelines we've seen, they come in off the trophy trucks, and you can see they've almost been sandblasted from tiny pebbles and sand. All it does is remove the paint. The carbon fiber can take that all day long, just like the steel tube can. Okay, it won't hurt it. It'll take, just like a trophy truck, 3 or 4 times of racing to make that tube reach its breaking point or failure point. The time it's going to hurt it is if you hit something hard enough to bend or crush it. But that will also bend or crush the steel one. Either way, you're not racing no more. You're out of the truck, changing the driveline. So the smaller tube at 2.5 inches is less of a target, which means its survival rate is going to be better. There's some misconceptions about carbon fiber, and they used to be true, but a lot's changed now. A lot of the carbon fiber originally, in the last 20 years, 25 years ago, was manufactured more as a tube, like a sailboat mast or something. And it was made for its strength to take a pressure bending it. The new carbon fiber that's been designed for drivelines is specially wrapped in a different way, and the wraps are woven several different ways depending on the torsional torque needed and the resistance to that torsional load. So drivelines have changed dramatically, where some of the old myths about road rash and having problems with the carbon fiber driveline just aren't true anymore. They're sacrificial layers of fiberglass that take that road rash and pitting before it ever gets to the carbon fiber. And like I say, they've now been designed for torsional load, for driveline specifically, so they don't unwind and come apart, because they were actually designed for the torsional load instead of a flexing load. Basically, the bonding for carbon fiber, people are wondering how does that work? It's epoxy. It's a glue. Okay, but it's not the epoxy you buy at the hardware store. This stuff for a caulking tube size that you see in your normal caulking gun to seal your bathtub or whatever, that size tube, this stuff is about $450 for that size tube, not 12 bucks. So it's very expensive. Most of it's by 3M. It's been developed and used on space shuttles, planes, rockets, long before it came to the automotive world. So it's proven itself in its ability many times over in tougher situations. So yes, it is glued together, but it's a whole different world, and the development and research has been there for over 20 years on this type of bonding. So it's very strong, it works. The only thing that can make it fail usually is a heat source, that you've heated it up and melted it, and that normally takes a couple 100 degrees. And because of the cars, they're now working on some new epoxies that will possibly go to 300 degrees. So it's becoming a new thing for performance automotive, and people are seriously working on the engineering aspects to keep improving this. So you shouldn't have any problems with carbon fiber if it's something you're interested in for any automotive application or race application. Carbon fiber drivelines versus a steel driveline. Now, if you're in a performance car, drag racing, or you have a chance of breaking that driveline, even on a street car with a lot of horsepower, you should be running a driveline hoop, because it can break, and if it breaks at the front side and drops and digs into the ground, it can lift the car, and you can have a pretty serious accident with that or roll the car. Okay, with carbon fiber, the nice thing is when it breaks, it just turns into a ball of ribbon and starts unraveling, because it broke in the middle, and whatever was winding and keeping it together is now starting to unravel, and it just becomes a big ball of ribbon. Now, the danger is if you go to pick it up, it can be very sharp, but that ribbon's not going to come through the side of the car. Actually, we've put some carbon fibers in trophy trucks now that the driveline runs right between the seats in some of these new mid-engine cars. And there's only 0.65 aluminum wall between the driver and the driveline. And for safety, steel will come right through that with jagged edges and cause some serious damage, and possibly several stitches and things that the driver or co-driver would have to deal with. Carbon fiber turns into a ball, and you just hear it rubbing around down there, and it doesn't do anything. So there's a lot of neat features for carbon fiber, and safety factor, performance factor. You're going to see this keep getting better and better in the carbon fiber world. It's a whole new world in carbon fiber now, and I think we're going to see some great things coming up in carbon fiber. Stay tuned and watch us.